that my talk is what I've kind of classified as more of a pep talk versus a tech talk. I'm not going to get into a lot of technical details in this presentation, so if you thought you were going to get a lot of really deep stuff and you want to move on to another, you're not going to hurt my feelings. But I've kind of geared this more as a pep talk more than anything else. So, in what way? Rah, rah, ree, kick him in the knee.
You asked. I stepped right into that one, I know. So, what you could possibly do.
Right. It's more of what Tyson has done and how we got there with just a little tiny bit of use of salt, so I'm hopefully at the end that you'll come away with a better sense of, yeah, we can do this mentality. So, rah, rah, exactly. So I have 10:45 by my watch. So I am the authority. I tell you, this is a much more comfortable stage than the last one I was just on. All right, so hello, my name is Patrick Swartz. If you weren't at the keynote this morning, I work for Tyson Foods, and like I was just saying, this talk is more of a pep talk of how Tyson Foods has migrated in our use of salt and what we've done to get there. So what I had hoped to cover today in this little 45-minute time window is, just who is Tyson? What more than what you may have seen at the keynote, just who is Tyson and what do we do? What does our IT landscape look like? And what's our current salt topologies and how did we get there? Talk about a little bit of how we've gained some efficiencies and power, just barely touching the surface of what we can do in salt. We'll go over a little bit of the Salt Enterprise UI, and then we're going to talk, again, I give a small slide on how we're doing some integration with VMware, vRealize, Orchestrator, and then we'll talk about how we've moved from, just an IT or OS tool to involving other teams and some final thoughts and Q&A. So just who is Tyson Foods? For especially some of you guys coming in from overseas, you may not know anything about Tyson. So who are we? Like we talked about in the keynote, we were established in 1935 by John Tyson in the South Arkansas, Oklahoma region. We born out of necessity. He had to find a way to support his family. He started selling fruits and vegetables out of his truck around to different grocery stores and realized that was very seasonal and he couldn't sustain his family that way, and realized that selling chickens, he could do that year round. And from that humble beginning has moved on to what it is today, which is, like I said, 114,000 team members worldwide. And yet it feels like it's a very small company. It boggles my mind sometimes to realize that we have 114,000 team members at Tyson Foods. We annually have, this is I think 2016 numbers, of $37 billion in sales. And we just acquired another company called Advanced BR Foods, which is your convenience store proteins, your hot dogs and such that you can get, which will increase that number even more so going forward. And what I think is surprising, those of you who do know about Tyson, you typically think of Tyson chicken. But if you look at this, no, it's not. It's a weather vane. Everybody can tell that's a weather vane. Where's my bouncer? Is that beef is actually our number one segment by sales, which is, I think, is just fascinating. We have Iowa Beef Packers products, and they go out to and get rebranded into a lot of other name brands that you would recognize. So one of our key mottos, our purpose at Tyson, is to raise the world's expectations for how much good food can do. I don't have a slide for this, but we are partnering with the One Egg Foundation, which helps We just moved into, I think it was Costa Rica or one of the island countries in the South, in the Caribbean, to help. I think we set up something that can produce 5,000 eggs a day so that every child in the country could get at least one egg for their meal per day. And just the amount of protein that one egg could provide, and the good that can provide for a growing number of children. That's what Tyson is all about, raising the world's expectations for what good food can do. And we can do that through a number of portfolio brands. Like I said, we have the typical Tyson chicken brand label. We have Jimmy Dean sausage. We have the Hillshire brand, the sliced lunch meats and whatnot that are there. Ballpark Franks. Now that the World Series is over, I guess we can, move that into basketball ballparks. So we have a number of name brands that people probably start recognizing that are all underneath the Tyson. And this is just a small subset. There's a lot more. But to keep the slide kind of clean, I narrowed it down to just these. Some emerging brands as well that are coming through the Tyson portfolio. So moving on to, okay, that's Tyson. Any questions about who Tyson is? We're all about providing protein, looking for protein-based foods and good protein-based foods for the family. And being a father of 8 children, trust me, I appreciate having good quality protein-based foods for my 8 children at home. Thank you very much. Okay, so what do we do in IT landscape? So as you can see, we have a wide variety of places. I hope that shows up kind of well. So we have one headquartered, and that's in Springdale, Arkansas. We have several corporate offices in South Dakota and Chicago, Illinois. And now with the Advanced Peer purchase, we have a headquarter in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I think in Oklahoma as well. Not sure what the plans are for those. And we also have a number of plants. This doesn't, in this slide, to keep it so it's actually somewhat legible, I didn't include all the farms. Tyson has a unique situation with farms, is that the farm is actually owned by the farmer. We provide them with feed or the chicks for them to raise, but they're their chicks, and then we buy them back from the farmer. But we provide them the food that they go to make sure that they're eating the right grains to raise the chickens. And then we provide them the chicks, and then we buy the chicks back. We buy the full-grown chicks back from them. So part of our relationship with the farmers goes hand in hand to help local farmers sustain themselves and not be bought into a corporate. We don't own the farms. Tyson works with the local people to have their own farms and their own farmsteads. So the graphic here is just our processing areas, whether it be chicken processing, beef processing, or some of the case-ready stuff. We're all over the central U.S. and East. We're starting to branch out more this way. So hopefully, not at all. Right?
So how much technology is in any one of these locations?
Well, of course, the data centers and the headquarters has a lot. But at the same time, whether it be a chicken processing plant or a case-ready beef and pork plant, there's a lot, actually, from the assembly lines, monitoring when the live animals are delivered, all the way through to landing at the local grocery store and managing how much is on stock. We get, Walmart is a key vendor of ours. We work very closely with Walmart. And we have people that go into Walmart to make sure that, we have our stock in the right place, and it's get the, and find out what products are selling and which ones aren't, and maybe figure out why. So there's a lot of IT that goes into all of that. We're in a big process of reducing our water consumption at all of our plants, our processing plants, I think by 2020, to a substantial reduction of water usage. And so there's a lot of IoT technology being put in place as well. At all of these. And they all report back to the corporate headquarters into our either SAP environment or Splunk environments or Hadoop environments. So there's a lot of growing technology within Tyson. And like I mentioned in our keynote, our Linux environment has exploded over the last 3 years. When I hired on, we had a little around 80 some odd Linux systems, and it just kind of dipped their toe in the water. A mixture between SUSE and Red Hat. We're a big SAP shop, so we had a lot of SAP or SLES for SAP. And now, just under 3 years later, we've grown by 1,150%. We have over 1,000 Linux installations. And we had to find some way to be able to deploy those, manage those, and take care of them. So it's been very daunting to take care of. And just a small team of us that are here to take care of it. So this is where we're at today. This isn't what we started with. And I hope you can kind of make sense a little bit. I tried to keep it as clean as possible. We have Salt Enterprise at our very top. Then we chose to go that we ended up at the route of having multiple masters, not in a Syndic situation, but individual masters. We have individual masters for Salt or for Linux sandbox and test, and only sandbox and test minions connect to that master. Same for development, only development minions connect to that master, all the way up through production. And then we have separate masters for Hadoop QA and Hadoop production. And we also then have separate masters for all of our AIX environment. And so all of those have just a subset of minions connecting to them. We found that this has been, we grew into this pretty quickly when we realized we had, our environment was growing so fast, we had to provide a way to protect our production environment first and foremost. And we couldn't allow, some errant Salt, star or star command to go out and hit random things without some control. At this point now, with it broke out this way, we can be very cognizant that if a Salt command is ran at the production master, it's going to hit production machines. But if at the same time, if it's going to be ran on a sandbox master, it's only going to affect sandbox machines. And so we can be fairly well assured that we have good isolation between minion groups. And then, of course, all of this reports up to the Salt Enterprise. So we can run queries, and I'll show an example of that from Salt Enterprise, across all of the masters to find whatever we're looking for. Yes, sir?
Just a quick question. I was wondering, given this architecture here, are you using containerized masters to be able to control them?
No. They're all individual virtual machines today. We're looking at some of the containerizations, but we haven't got there yet. And we're also in a big push to start moving everything to the cloud, whatever that means today. From the chuckles, I guess that's a lot of people may be in the same boat. Yeah. Yes, sir. We're starting to do a lot more with the application stack as well, pushing some of the Oracle flow or SAP application stacks. We're starting to get into that realm. Yes, sir. The network segments, are they network segmented? Yes, they are. Yes. And so we can reach the other masters. And so the masters themselves are in the production environment, but they also have a connection to their network segmentation. It's not yet. And of course, we push all of this into GetLab is our chosen code repository for all of our states and pillars is all stored in GetLab. And we have it broke down in such a way that the projects, each team, whether it be the Linux OS team or the AIX team or the SAP application team, the DBA team, they have their own projects within GetLab. And we have it set up such that only the sandbox master can see anything that's not in a master branch. So if somebody codes something and pushes it into a new branch, the sandbox master can connect to that branch, that dev branch, if you will, and roll that code. All the rest of the masters, the code has to be in the master branch before the master can see it. And so that has really helped us narrow our focus to, if it's not in the master, it provided us a way to ensure that if once code got pushed into the master branch, it's good code. But it gave a way for the other teams to test their code without having to have it being pushed into the master branch. And so, but only the sandbox master can see non-master branch repositories. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where we've evolved to. And then, of course, I'd be remiss to say that we have SUSE Manager we use for all of our patching repositories and third-party repositories. So Salt can talk to SUSE Manager and deploy repository files to our minions, and then we can use Salt then to do zipper up or yum up or whatever the case may be, or run this upgrade state. And of course, we're experimenting with the idea of moving a lot of the job cache data into Splunk as well. I pinged on the Slack work group about possibly creating a Splunk Salt work group, building out a new dashboard, an application for Splunk and Salt. So we can't let the puppet people have all the fun, right? So how did we? So what is about this team efficiency and power? With a little bit of you. So we started down this road. These bits and pieces. The bits, the beacons and the reactors and the runners and the grains. And I'm not going to read these things to you. You know what they are. We started with a idea of how much of this do we really have to start with? Do we have to, eat the whole elephant at once, or can we start small and work up? And that's the method we chose to go with. We started small, just our Linux team experimenting and kind of learning the curves, if you will, till we got to a little bit more advanced stuff. But by the use of beacons, and I have some slides on each of these here, but these small parts allowed us to then expand and grow to a much better impact for us. So let's dive into some of these. So with our beacons and reactors, here's a couple examples. We have, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the relax and recover application. Anybody? We won't have a lot of people raising their hands saying they're a rear expert. Good point, Don. Thank you very much. Relax and recover experts. Okay, anybody familiar with relax and recover? Good. Yeah. Well, we had moved from another product to give us we're not AIX, so we don't have makes this be. So we had to find some way we could recover a machine, whether it be bare metal or VM, in such a way that pretty quickly, for especially like our databases or CIs, SAP CIs. And so we found this relax and recover application, which is part of the open source world. And then using the reactors and beacons was able to determine if TSM is installed. That's our backup strategy software. And if so, then it checks to see if the rear ISO is current. Because every time the relax and recover runs, if it's not current, then it will fire an event to go create a new ISO, which if you're not familiar with relax and recover, it creates an ISO file with all the bits and pieces that machine needs to then boot and kick and hit then TSM and pull in the most current. It'll build it back up from bare metal and boot off that rear ISO, lay down the original bits, hit TSM, pull down all the bits from the most recent backup. So it was a really nice tool for us to find. It replaced another tool that I won't mention and didn't work as well. And then this one was free. The other one we were paying for. So yay, open source. Another one we like is VNC Cleaner. This one, it goes out and looks and finds any stale VNC sessions that we happen to have running. And you go, VNC sessions? Really? Yes, really. Being an SAP shop or an Oracle shop, we have to actually provide, am I that close? Oh, thank you. I'm like, wow. Provide a way for them to, we have to give them root VNC sessions today. We're in the process of fixing some of that. But today we have to give them root VNC sessions. Well, before Salt, we would have to keep kind of a scratch pad or an Excel spreadsheet of what machine, when did we set up VNC, and or some other method to go make sure that they're cleaned up. Well, now with Salt and using beacons and reactors, we can find those stale VNC sessions, set a timer on that, and then go out and kill those sessions, and then it sends us an email, and we have it kind of fun there. A little bit of fun where we said this one was an example of one. It said, VNC killer bopped one root VNC session from this particular server. And we had a little fun with that, and that bop word changes for about every, I don't know, how many you have in there now? 8 or 9 different verbs there, killed, squashed, demolished. But we get that email, the Linux team gets an email, so we know that it's still working and those VNC sessions are cleaned up. So that was a really nice advantage. So it saved us a lot of time in tracking, to go back out and find those stale VNC sessions and make sure they're clean, make sure our environment stays somewhat safe. Another big area we took a lot of advantage of was grains and custom grains. So we really rely on a lot of custom grains. And in my example here in a minute, I'll show some of that. Before Salt came along, we were that older method of tracking things, the spreadsheets and multiple spreadsheets and web pages and other kinds of tools to who owns what system. I mean, does anybody else have that problem? It's like, who owns this box? Who's responsible for this machine? What team owns this box? What team do we go talk to about getting us downtime to schedule patches for this box? Now with custom grains, we can actually specify, some of the things like that, like, the SAP SID, which we use a ton of. The company name, because we have acquired multiple companies, we need to know whether it was a Tyson original, or is it a Hillshire branded system, or now is it an advanced Pierre system, or was it an IBP, Iowa Beef Packer system. So we need to know those things. It helps us, from an administrator point of view, understand what our windows are for that system. The responsible team, any NFS information about the box. Those are all custom grains for us now that we can isolate on. And we're going to, work on a future option of having an outage window as a part of an approved grain. And so in a system, we have a menu, and we'll talk about that when we get to the VMware, that we fill out. And one of those options we add is SAP data and, hopefully eventually outage window that we can react on. But we use a lot of targets and grains for our environment. So here's an example, or a couple of examples, where we're querying this particular box. We're asking for NFS mounts, the description, what SID, SAP server, and the SID ID, the team name. And so we can see these, just by hitting that, or if we were to, instead of doing one particular server, we could have done across them all and seen them. But we can see these are some of our custom grains. We can now start really focusing in on and targeting specific systems to do something with. We had a major project where we were doing some of our network segmentation, and we needed to know, and we do, everything is, in our world, is by SAP nomenclature. So we're going to say, we're going to migrate all PR3 systems to this new network segment. Well, before, it was really painful to find all these SAP PR3 systems, whether it be Linux or AIX. It was painful, and we'd miss a lot before. Well, now with these custom grains, we can feel really confident that we're getting all, in this example, PR3 systems to make sure that they're being moved and treated properly. Another example here, and you can see I'm targeting a particular grain, the one on the far right there, you know, where I'm asking for, show me all the PR3 systems, and of course this was a subset, and then we have summary turned on, which we've started really enjoying the summary feature within Salt commands. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we actually run a.
No, it's a custom grain module that we work with our SAP team on. They've got a particular path that their application set up in, and we query a file. Because I've played around with stuff on phone. Nah, we're actually just going off file system.
So, did everybody hear the question and the answer? You know, for that SAP grain, for example, you know, we did write a custom module for that to look through a path that the SAP team gave us. Said, if you find this nomenclature in this path, then the SID is, and we have some systems that have multiple SIDs, some of the larger databases. So then we had to be very careful with those. You know, if we're moving a PR3 and this system's a PR3 and PR8 or, you know, something else, and we have to be very, very careful with that we don't overlap our targets. So another example of how we're using, in this case, how we're using runners. And we're just really starting to scratch the surface here in some of our runner use case. In this example, we have SUSE HA. We love SUSE HA product for clustering. And we have a our syslog cluster setup to, you know, all of our network devices send data into our syslog. It's built into a high availability SUSE cluster. And we use Orchestrator and the runners to help us. So when the monitoring team, they have their own GetLab project, they move code, they test it in the course in Sandbox, and they move it into master, where Orchestrator then sees that, reacts upon that to then go push the new configs down, do an HA migrate to another machine, restart our syslog on the next machine in the cluster, and that way we can be ensured that. And then the monitoring didn't have to log on to all three of the machines in the cluster, copy files. It's all done automatically from our GetLab integration and orchestrations. Any questions on that? All right. So Salt Enterprise. Like I said, we're really starting to get into more of the Salt Enterprise use case. With the latest release, I think it was 5.2 that fixed some of the RBAC controls, the Active Directory integration. We had to wait really until our Active Directory was running for us to really take advantage of that. But in this use case here, you can see, you know, this typical screenshots. We chose to, in this example, search across all the masters. Like I said, you know, if you remember the screenshot, we have Salt Enterprise above all, you know, all the masters. And so we could query all masters for a particular grain. And in this example, we were doing the NFS mounts, you know, because it is able to see all the grain dropdowns, which is really nice, because you may not remember exactly what that grain was called. And in this case, the dropdown shows you all the grains that are available, which was really nice. And it didn't require somebody with a lot of detailed knowledge to understand how the grains were built. And we picked that particular, you know, NFS mount in this example. We narrowed it down then even further using the, you know, SAP NAS1, SAP stage file system. And then we ran that query, and we found that, you know, there's an example here where, you know, we can show that different masters were found for this particular. We found that the multiple SID grains were hit, you know, like on that one box here in the middle, NACP01, and across multiple OSs. And so we were able to hit the entire environment with one query instantly and give us back a result of what we're looking for across the whole environment. And that, while we were doing a lot of the network segmentation projects, we had to do a lot of NFS changes as well. And so our storage team needed this information. And of course, then they were able to export this into a CVS file to then use for their NFS changes. So that was just kind of a very simple use case. how we're using the multiple grains with Salt Enterprise across the whole environment. This was, just this simple use case alone saved hours and hours of spreadsheet usage and missed systems and miscommunication. This, we could provide, spread this out into an Excel spreadsheet, provide that to other teams if they could go, oh, that system's still there? I thought we decommissioned that system, whatnot. Oh, I didn't realize we had that many systems. We can't patch that many this weekend, No, we really need to. So this was just, kind of scratching the surface what we're starting with Salt Enterprise. And with the announcement today talking about the I've lost it. Audit control. I'm really hoping to maybe replace a couple of products that we have in-house for audit control. You like that? You have a question? Okay. So I'm excited about what we can start seeing and doing within Salt Enterprise for some of our audit needs. So as we were growing, we had to find ways instead of rebuilding, building new servers. We had to build lots of them and really fast. 10, 12 systems could come in a day that needed to be built for tomorrow's new SAP rollout of something. Of course, it's always urgent and always needs tomorrow or today. Can you build these 12 machines real quick for me? Right. Okay. So my coworker here, Jake, put a lot of code together behind the scenes to work with the VMware vRealize Orchestrator. Anybody in here familiar with vRealize Orchestrator? A couple of you? You love it? So by using the Salt API, we were able to talk to the vRealize Orchestrator. We were able to then build machines faster and be production ready within minutes. I think we're down to, 7 or 8 minutes machine from a brand new build. And what we have is we have a small form in vRealize Orchestrator that collects specific data, like the SID, how many disks, if it needs more than the standard, what data center is it going to be part of, what data store does it need to talk to, what network is it supposed to be on, etc. We have these forms that we fill out inside vRealize Orchestrator. And then this data is all fed into the Salt API in JSON format. And then the Salt reacts, creating the pre-accepted keys, generates a minimal ISO image, which then includes a fully populated AutoYes file, because we are a SLED shop. And after the system comes online, then Salt commands are all ran, the high states, the application drives, installs apps, etc. And so by the time it's 7 minutes later, it's ready to hand off to the application team because all of their predetermined apps are already installed. It's already been accepted by the Salt Master, the right Salt Master. And so this is really cut down and made sure that all systems are built correctly and meets the needs of the client that's asking for the machine. So it needs some work. We have a lot of growth with this area, but it has saved us a ton of time so far. Any questions on this so far? Okay. How am I doing on time? Couple minutes? Okay, perfect. So, like I said earlier, we started involving, yes, sir?
But you're building the systems with vRealize Orchestrator, not like Salt Cloud.
Correct. We're using vRealize Orchestrator to actually build the systems. We lay down fresh bits using AutoYast every time, and then we also because we created that system-specific ISO that has a system-specific AutoYast in it, at any time, and we save those, any time we could launch that machine brand new again from that ISO, and recreate it from scratch from that point as it was built.
Did you also consider templates?
Yes. I'm not a fan of templates for a couple of different reasons that I can talk to you about offline. We found that with templates, a couple of things that bit us a couple of times. Just there's certain unique files that you have to make sure you clean up afterwards, and those weren't always getting cleaned up. Or if you had to make a change to the template, you had to, launch the machine, convert it into a VM, launch the machine, make your changes, make sure you cleaned up all you've left behind on that machine, shut it down, convert it back to a template. It's just cumbersome. Where an AutoGuess file is much easier to maintain. It's XML file. We keep it in our Git repository. So we have version control of those AutoGuess files as well. So we can see when a date of this machine was built and can compare that to the AutoGuess that was used to build the system with and see, okay, oh yeah, we needed to make a change back there, and we know what machines we need to go hit to make an update on. And so we have a lot better control over what the system is actually being built with using AutoGuess versus templates. Any other questions? Good ones, though. So as I mentioned, we started realizing that, as our Linux team, we were kind of the guinea pigs, if you will, on our Salt usage. We started rolling it out and experimenting, kind of getting up to speed on what Salt could do for us, and we started kind of showing it off in stages to other teams, and some of those other teams included our storage administration team, our SAP application team, and our monitoring team, which had their own kind of ways to do things. They had their own shell scripts or their own ways of connecting to machines. As we started rolling this out, their team started getting involved and starting realizing the power of what they could do with Salt, and started jumping on and started kind of getting onto this bandwagon of, we could get rid of all of these legacy things that we're having a really hard time maintaining and move it all into states, and have a much cleaner way of managing our environment going forward. And so it's become more than just an OS administration tool, but now it's morphing into this much larger application support tool as well, which we're just barely scratching the surface with some of this. But the teams, as they start realizing, it's just a little bit of, like I talked about, my title, a little bit of Salt usage is starting to, then they get a little bit more comfortable. Okay, we were able to do this little tiny thing, but it was really simple. That gave me some confidence. I can do maybe a little bit bigger thing the next time, more confidence, and it just continues to build the options of what we can do. So, again, get more people involved. It's been really good for us. So, a couple of final thoughts. We've been able to grow rapidly due to the flexibility and ease of use of Salt. The learning curve for us, we had another product in place initially, but the learning curve was so steep, we didn't have the time to give to that product's learning curve. Salt's learning curve was very simple. We could start very small, do some very, that whole, if you're playing bingo, low-hanging fruit options, hit those and be really successful with those really quickly. So we could, and the learning curve just kept growing. So we've only really begun to understand the full possibilities of Salt within Tyson. We have found that, like I mentioned in the last, when other teams start getting it, wow, let's do this. Then that whole desert of landscape it is today starts popping up with these well springs of ideas that we can start automating and maintaining systems in a much more efficient way. I mean, that's kind of the whole purpose of what Tyson IT is all about, being creative, being flexible, and looking for more efficient ways to manage our environment. And we're in the process of working through legal, so keep an eye out for, we're going to be releasing a GitHub channel. So some of the custom modules, like our SID-grain module, we'll be able to put out into GitHub, so we can start sharing back to the community of what we've gained from Salt. So hopefully they'll be up before too long. You've got to get the whole legal approval to put a Tyson-labeled GitHub channel out there. So and one thing I didn't put in my slide on, they talked about it in the keynote, meetups. How many of you all have been to a Salt meetup? A couple. I'm telling you, if you don't have a Salt meetup in your local area, connect with SaltStack and get one started. Because getting more community people involved locally and sitting down and just on these roundtables and talking about things, I started one in the Omaha area, and just getting people together that are just kind of like curious about salts and sharing with them the vision of what salt can do. And then at the same time, having others that are starting to become the really, really good experts at salt, being able to share the data with one another locally. And if you have a question or help, then you've got help right there in your local city. At the same time, I think I have it on my last slide, but the salts, the new Slack channel for salts. I know a lot of you guys are probably IRC users, but I have too much gray hair for IRC anymore. Sorry. So I've kind of migrated over to Slack. I like it. And now with the new Slack channel for SaltStack community, I think there's a lot of good possibilities coming out of that. All right, any other final questions, anything you want to throw at me? Like I said, have you had your Tyson today? Yeah. And Meals That Matter. Meals That Matter is a program that goes into communities that are in desperate need and helps provide food. Like during the hurricanes, Meals That Matter, Tyson's Meals That Matter trucks, just in convoys going to these places to help provide food.
So you're just now starting to actually do application stuff with SaltStack?
Well,
We've been doing the SAP stuff for quite a while.
yeah.
Mostly all the prereqs so they can actually install their SAP application.
Yeah. We haven't got to the point of actually installing the SAP application yet, but we've got all the prereqs done, and to the point where, and we're working with them to find out what they need, because my goal is to eventually do away with the root VNC sessions, so they don't have to log into the system to do their next step. This is a long time.
So they're just used to using VNC?
Yes. They just get to a command line through a shell at root VNC and then run their stuff. But we're working toward that to even get to that part automated as well and do away with the whole root VNC sessions, and I can finally kill X on my machines. Yes, sir. Do you have a question? Okay. So yes, my contact info, if you want to reach out to me personally, you can also jump on the Slack community Slack group. And then there's a picture of some of the current meetups that are going today. And if you go to saltstack.com/community, that has the list of all of them right there as well. So that was kind of the more community involvement we get, the better we'll just make the product eventually, and better for all of us. And that's what I've got for you. Any other questions?